Hey everyone, super fast video to show you the build process for making just anything in Unity, but specifically in this case, one of our XR little projects that we're doing for 460, and specifically also an Android build. And this is partly so you can test your own things, but so you can share them as well with anyone who wants to see what you're up to. So this is how you do it. You get your basic Unity scene here, right? I've got a little XR origin, little kit. This is the person in VR, and I have a cube, and that's it. And this is the cube that is grabbable, right? So if you've been following along with the tutorials and progressing through the class, that should all make sense. We're able to reach out and use our little teleporter and grab the cube. But we want to check this, right? To go and check and see if this works in our headset. How do we do that? Well, if you're on a computer with a game, a VR-ready graphics card, you will be able to do that. We haven't talked about that process yet. The only reason is because we're waiting on all the other PCs to get installed in the lab. Fingers crossed, that's going to be ready for next week, so we'll be good to go there, and we can talk through that process more in more depth. Yeah. But until then, this will apply for everyone. So if you want to check your work, you go to File, then you go to Build Settings, and you want to confirm that you have a scene in this this little window here, which is called the Build Index. And to do that, you want to click Add Open Scene, and you'll see mine is called Test Scene here. And this is really important. You want to go up and double check that in the corner here. Hopefully you can see it. Mine says 460 XR template, and then it says Test Scene. You want to make sure that scene that you're building is here in this list. And then also, if you have multiple scenes that you've added over time, which is definitely possible as your projects get more complex, you want to make sure that the scene you want to start with in your game is at the top and has an index value of 0. Right now, it's probably a moot point, right? That you have one scene, and you just want to make sure it's in there. But just a heads up, when we get further through, and maybe you want more scenes and you want to be able to move between them or something, that's going to be very important. Okay, that's it. So if you want to check this, so you have your Quest, plugged into your computer. It's kind of hiding in my filter there. But say you have your Quest plugged into your computer. All you do then is hit Build and Run, and it's going to ask you to save somewhere on your PC or Mac. And it's going to say file name. What do you want to call this thing? And you can call this, my game is awesome. Whatever it is, right? You want to look and see where you're saving that. We haven't talked about this much, but at least so far in the class, because it's just been very simple to this point. But you probably want to make a folder on your computer just for doing these builds. So what I like to do is within my Unity projects root folder, I have a folder called builds. And then here I've got this one with my colleague. These are builds I'm doing for our conducting app. And you can just make a new one. Just make a new folder. It's called 460 builds or whatever you want to call it. The reason is you want to keep very organized. It's going to be very easy to lose your organization, let things just kind of fly all over your machine and just be everywhere. And it's not great. Your organization will set you free, I promise. So we've got that set. I'm going to choose that folder. And again, if you're doing this on a Mac, it'll obviously look slightly different. You'll have a different file system. If you need questions or have questions, need help with that, just let me know. I have a Mac and I can interface with you and show you. Go ahead and save to that folder, and that's it. What'll happen is it'll compile your app, and then Unity will go back to looking like nothing happened. But if you toss on your Quest, you'll be able to see it, and then be able to see what your VR experience looks like. And that's the build and run step. If you just want to build it, so maybe you don't want to run it. And this is specifically if maybe you're just building it to share with someone, or you're sharing with me, you're submitting your homework, on ReggieNet or something. You can skip the build and run, and you can just click build. And what this will do then, you can just go to, go to our little build folder that we made here, and just call this awesome game first build, and hit save. And now it's just going to build it. It's going to ask you to save the scene if you haven't. It's just going to build it and put it in that folder. And that's it. right? That's it'll just be there. And this is, again, it's really good if you're sharing with someone, because then you could just send them that APK. Um, or specifically because, next week you're going to have an assignment due where you're submitting builds to me, right? So I can check them. This is what you want to do. And then this is the thing you actually upload to ReggieNet and share with me, right? It's going to go. I think I said this in class, maybe when we did a build, but the first time you compile your project, it'll take a little bit longer because it's doing a bunch of magic behind the scenes with shaders and compressing files and stuff like that. The subsequent times should be much faster until you start getting more complex stuff put into your project, more textures and videos and things like that. So this should be done in just a second. And then I want to show you one more thing in our project settings that's really important for iteration to keep things straight on your end. Okay, so there it goes. Whoa, got really bright. There it is. There's my APK file. This is just an Android file. If you've done any Android development for like a Samsung Galaxy or whatever, same thing, right? This is what you would upload to ReggieNet to share with me, or just share with your friend. You can email it to them, and then they can sideload it in SideQuest, which I know we talked about in class briefly, but we can go over that again in class when we are meeting face to face. Okay, so that's that. The one more thing I just wanted to show you is in project settings and then player settings. We went over these really briefly in class, and more or less I just said, don't touch anything. It's good. You can hurt yourself. But you can touch things. Just know that if you pull the wrong lever in here, basically you can do some weird things to your project. The one thing I do want to show you though, that's not intuitive, and maybe intuitive if you have a lot of programming background, but definitely if you're not a programmer, is this thing down here, the package name. This corresponds with this at the top. Okay, so you have company name minus this default company. I could change this to my name, right? And it's going to not change it down here unless you uncheck this box, right? And then it'll change it. I just had it checked so you can override and I could create my own custom package name down here. The reason I had that checked down here is because when you jump into your Quest and you start looking at the files that you've sideloaded, right, that you have loaded on your Quest, especially these things that you're just putting on your Quest to check and play with, right, that are all your own apps. It doesn't matter to Android what the name of your file is. Like I called this my awesome game, right? Android doesn't care. What the actual Android operating system is looking for is this. So the reason I point this out is because if you want to create discrete instances of your application and not have things like overwrite, right, over and over again, say you want different versions, right? You can play with the versioning here, this little thing that has the asterisk, or, and I find this just to be clearer in my mind, I just do the iteration on the name so that then when you're in your browser in the Quest, you can see it. So what I mean by that is, it's a little complicated. You just change the package name each time. So it's com.roymagnuson.xr template, right? Oops. 1. And then I'll do a build, right? And then check it. And if I want to iterate, right, I want to make a different branch, right? You just come in here and before you build, just call it 2, 3, 4, etc. That's really helpful. And then the other thing that is super helpful for me is that if you go into your player settings here, project player, and just change your company name to your name, that means when I actually download your file and put them on my Quest, I can tell whose is whose. Otherwise, I just have to keep track, right? I'm sort of loading them in order, and then I have to remember what order I loaded your apps on. So we'll talk about that in class because that's just more of a me thing. But if you do remember and you want to jump in there, just change this to your company name to you, and then that'll help me a lot, right? The only other thing really fast that someone had a problem with, I can't remember what section, if it was Monday or Thursday or both. Your name, your company name and your product name have to start with letters. They can't start with numbers. So you can't do this like 2XR or something. It has to be just a letter. It won't actually even compile. You'll get an error and it'll say build failed. I think that's it. Again, we'll go into more of these settings in detail as we jump through the class here. Several of them we're going to have to absolutely tweak to make things work, but that's the gist of it, right? Builds are very straightforward for Android. You're just getting an APK file. When you do the build and run, it's going to build it and then run it and put it on your Quest. It will actually also obviously save it somewhere. But if you want to skip that entirely and you just want to build it and submit for your homework, just go ahead and hit build and then throw it somewhere and share with me or share with your friends. Okay, I think that's it. If you have questions, just let me know. Otherwise, I will see you in class.